Thanks for tuning in today. This is my favorite day, the day when I get to play with toys. We have the Enduro. This is our vid 2, where I'm gonna go outside and I am gonna see what is up. So have you ever seen a cooler box that a rig comes in? I mean, it's not that outside the box. Oh boy, I gotta air quotes that one. But at the same time, this is pretty cool. I like the scale garage aspect of this box. I touched on it in the last video and really didn't get to talk about it because the video was already long enough. But I think this is pretty cool. This is something that's, a lot of scale nerds are gonna like. I'm not exactly a real big scale nerd, and I still like it. So that's pretty cool. One thing that I would like to address before I go outside is that in the last video that I said that Horizon was the parent company of Associated and Element RC. You can't believe everything that you read on the internet. I made some bad mistakes doing that. It is actually Thunder Tiger that owns Associated. So the Horizon umbrella and Thunder Tiger are not associated with each other. A little play on words there. But it still has some parts that are compatible with the SCX-10-2, which is, of course, the Axial branded product. And I think that was just done for consistency in the market. It was not done, of course, because they are owned by the same company, so just wanted to address that. This is a separate entity from Axial Racing in all ways, which is actually even better because now we're gonna have more competition in the market. But I think at this point, it's best to just kind of go outside and drive it and see how it is. So let's go out there. We are outside and ready to test the Enduro. So first, let's just kind of look at our weight balance here. It's actually a relatively forward heavy truck, and I like that. That's always good. I typically want about a 60-40 weight bias on my own vehicles. Let's go ahead and test our no-load startup. It does have a machine wound motor, a sealed can machine wound 5-slot motor, 16 turn, and I'm running 3-cell LiPo. I'm just giving a little bit amount of throttle. It's pretty decent startup speed. I feel that a nicer ESC or radio would help. You can see that it goes between just start up and a little faster. There we go, that's our minimum speed, which is not quite enough to get past the drivetrain binding at first. But it's still very good for a ready to run. Absolutely. I mean, that's probably best ready to run I've seen so far. The only downside though is that there's no expo on the throttle and it's a 70-30 trigger, so when we go into reverse, I'm gonna try my best here. Oh, I'm gonna try my best to be real smooth. Yeah, it's real touchy. It goes full on in reverse real fast, and that's just the 70-30 throttle combined with a ESC that doesn't have any expo. Yeah, so the reverse is touchy. About my takeaway, but let's see how it does on the rocks. So really what I'm interested in, not only the electronics, but also the suspension geometry of this guy. And one thing that I did not point out in our last video is that it's got about a 20% droop setup. So we lift it up, there's our full extension on our suspension, and when we let it go, oh, it just droops right into it, and that's perfect. We get a lot more compression available. But once we kind of get going and driving, it sits at about 20% droop, which is super nice, super perfect. I have not made any more changes to the setup. I have not installed the 12% overdrive. It's running the stock 6% overdrive right now, which is kind of hard to tell. I'm a fan of overdrive. I like about 30% overdrive in my rigs, which is quite aggressive. But for a regular trail truck, you really don't need that much. I do think that the 12% is going to be real nice. So after this video, I'm going to install that and see how it does. So the motor does unload a little bit, but that's kind of standard for a 5-slot and machine wound in particular. So when you get it bound down, it wants to unload, kind of run away a little bit on you. Not to say that it's a bad motor, but the bumpers, on the other hand, are quite in the way. There certainly is going to be a lot of people wanting to change these bumpers out or just take them off. If you've noticed in a lot of my other videos, TRX4, SCX-10-2, I tend to just take my bumpers off and I don't always put them back on. So far, no torque twist really. And the tires seem to be real good. Now, I don't know how they would do in the wet. It's not wet right now. And you can see the suspension unloading real nice. So, okay, here's a good show of the torque twist. I'm giving a little bit of throttle. We're getting a little bit of torque twist. It's in about the worst position that it could possibly be in. But it's still very controllable, and that's honestly not that bad. I'm not going to be able to get through this. We'll try once again. And I like that the mirrors kind of fold back instead of just breaking off. That's a nice touch. So this is our hard climb out here. Now if I can get that rear tire to hook. Oh, it almost had it. Almost. This is kind of the test spot. If we're ready to run, and this one is truly ready to run, I've done no modifications to the suspension. I've not gained any clearance anywhere, stock tires and everything. If a ready to run can make this climb, it is a pretty capable vehicle. Oh no. So let's see if this touchy reverse throttle helps. Maybe a little touchy. And since this is my rig, I'm just gonna beat on it like I would any other rig. All right, so it's not walking this section at low speed, but you can kind of see the front suspension unloading and that dig really biting in and keeping us sucked down to the rock instead of just flipping over backwards. So I'm gonna have to take this with just a touch of wheel speed. Oh, almost had it. Well, I know the rig can probably do it. Just gotta get it on that right line. And our steering servo isn't, there we go. Steering servo isn't really helping. I will say that it feels nice and solid. Nice, strong steering servo for being stock. But again, I like about 300 ounce-inches at minimum. So you may have noticed that little non-smooth descent there. I was doing my best to keep a really low throttle amount, but the rig just free coasted because it's 5-slot, and I'm assuming that this ESC does not have active freewheeling, so it just kind of falls downhill. And boy, these bumpers are wide. Oh, if anybody has this rig already, let me know if you've taken your bumpers off, if there's anything aftermarket out there available. I'm sure there is. Oh, and this hole for our rear right tire, it seems to get me every time when I'm traversing this. We'll just bump through it. And while we're at it, let's say hello to our doggy next door that is a new move-in that we'll probably have cameo appearances of at every single video now because he's tied up outside. Just as a side note, I don't like people that tie up dogs outside. Unless you have a junkyard and your dog is defending your junkyard. All right, I'm gonna have to be a little more careful on my line. Recenter, try it again. Yeah. I was trying to just let the suspension do the work, but it wasn't having it. So, thoughts overall. I really like the suspension geometry. It's got a little bit more torque twist than I thought it would have, but it's very manageable. All rigs have some torque twist. I haven't noticed any bump steer though. The CMS, the chassis mounted servo, there's our smooth reverse. Not smooth. Chassis mounted servo and drag link, the 3-link setup is really spot on. Mostly I'm just having to be careful on that front bumper to line everything up so I'm not just slamming the front bumper and everything. Little trickier than normal. Here's a spot where we would normally flip over if the suspension geometry wasn't very good. No problems. Nice. Oh, servo. And they're doing nothing. Barely enough power. That's a good way to burn out the servo too, so I'll try not to stick into holes like that again. Maybe this bumper can get us through this hard section. Let's see what happens. Oh, nice and predictable. Whee! Yeah, sliders maybe stick out just a little bit as well. You know, overall, it's a nice rig though. I mean, especially for the price. We've got ourselves universals on the front, which are super nice. It's compatible with SCX-10-2 Chubbs, C-hubs. Metal 4-links on there. The suspension geometry I'm really digging. It's not the best as far as the torque twist, but it's by far not the worst. And absolutely manageable through this. The torque twist only presented itself when I was on that rear end, on that first rock, and you know, I was trying to show it pretty much. So let's try another little section over here, see how it does. If it can get past this bump, I'll say great side hill ability. Ow! Great side hill ability. Not the best driving that time, but yeah, considering I haven't added any weights to this rig, it's just box stock, no wheel weights, no knuckle weights, nothing like that. She's not doing bad. I'm definitely noticing the motor is a little spongy. Definitely a little spongy. Yeah. Well, I'll continue driving until this battery dies if I don't stop myself. So as a last little thing, let's show you how fast it is. Top speed. Yeah, it's got decent drag brake too. It's, man, on 3-cell, that's perfect speed, honestly. We can do some reverse wheelies. Maybe not. Body's just right for flipping yourself over, though. And this is I mean, for a new release, we've had so many new releases lately, and they've all been pretty dang good. And this one's right up there on the top. I would say overall, man, this is right there between that SCX-10-2 and the TRX-4 for me. It's capable, it's also inexpensive for what you get, and it comes with really smooth electronics. Of course, I would change out all the electronics in it because that's kind of what I do. I don't feel that the stock motor has enough oomph for me, really. ESC is not very smooth, radio is not really smooth. Steering servo is underwhelming, but this is something that I could say about any ready-to-run rig on the market. And if you're a regular viewer, you have heard me say it about every rig on the market. So really the next thing that I would do to this rig is I'm going to put in the 12% overdrive that comes with the RTR, and I'm probably going to switch out at least the motor, probably the ESC. I don't like how touchy this reverse is, and I kind of want to stick with the stock radio just so I can give it to my son and I'm not handing him off a $400 radio. I tend to keep the stock radios on rigs lately, and well, just see how good a rig can be with a stock radio, because radios can get really expensive. And it's one of those things that, especially if you got kids, it's one of the things that they can, you know, whoopsie, drop it. And I mean, stock radio like this, no big deal. But if I had a fancy radio with, you know, a screen on top, that could have cracked the screen or broken some internals, because they're not exactly made to drop, except for the DX5 Rugged or whichever one, which is very heavy, by the way. If anybody has one, let me know if you drive one of those, and if you've dropped it and it hasn't broken, or if you dropped it and it did break, because that'd be kind of sad. But you know, everything breaks at some point in time. And before I try to break this one, ow, break my leg, let's hop back in the studio, give my final thoughts. We are back inside, and I gotta say, I really love this truck. Man, this has gotta at least be in my top 3. Definitely on the level of the TRX-4 and the SCX-10-2. But I'm kind of glad to be inside the hobby house where we have some AC. Now, going forwards, what am I going to do with this rig? I'm probably going to wheel it a lot. Also, I would love to install the overdrive gears that they included with the kit. They have the 6% overdrive included already in there. I'm sorry, this is the RTR, not the kit. We'll get to the kit next time. But they also have the 12% overdrive option that comes with this RTR, and I want a little bit more overdrive. As I stated outside, I typically like to run about 30% overdrive if I'm going to have overdrive in my vehicles. Now I'm not exactly a comp crawler because I don't go to a lot of comps and actually compete these days, but I already have that taste of what a rig should be capable of because I have a lot of comp rigs still, and I want a little bit more overdrive. We'll see if the 12% is enough to satisfy me on regular trail runs. But let's run down everything else on this rig. Suspension geometry, on point. The 3-Lincoln CMS on the front, on point. The tire compound on this exceeded my expectations, on point. I don't know how it's going to do in the wet. That's usually where RTR tire fails. But as far as being an RTR tire, this is probably the best that I have ever driven. The rocks out there kind of powdery limestone. It doesn't always do great with stock compounds. Everything else, bumpers are a little in the way. I will definitely be modifying those bumpers. What else am I going to modify? Electronics. Definitely going to swap out the electronics. I'm a motor snob. I'm going to lay it out on the table. I'm laying it out on the table. I'm a motor snob. So I'm going to want a stronger motor, and I want a motor that has a little finer control on the startup as well as an adjustability so I can use a stock radio and not have touchy reverse. So it's going to be a BRXL. I'm a fan of 5-slot, so I'm going to go with the Crawlmaster Pro. It fits a 550, so I'm probably going to do a 550 or maybe another Magnum. I don't know. We'll see. What would you install in there? Maybe a choice between a Crawlmaster Pro and a Outrunner like the Revolver? That's a tough choice. Let me know what you would do in the comments. Also on tires, even though these are great, I may replace the tires. Let me know what you would do on tires for your rig and any other upgrades that you would do. What's the first thing that you would do to this guy? Or what have you done even? So I think instead of just thinking and pondering about this rig some more, we should call it good, and man, I'm probably just gonna go outside and crawl some more because that's what I can do. That's awesome. I love my job. So thank you for tuning in and have a good one.